Owner has no idea why BBQ orders vanish, goes undercover and finds manager selling food to vendors. Ray Torres wiped down the corner booth near the kitchen and froze. That was the third time this week he'd heard those exact words. "I've been waiting 40 minutes. Where's my food?" The woman at table 7 had that look, the one that said she'd already decided never to come back. Ray recognized it because he'd been seeing it more and more lately at Ray's Pit Barbecue. "Ma'am, I apologize," Ray said, approaching with his hands open, voice calm. "Let me check on that right now." He pushed through the double doors into the kitchen. The heat hit him first, smoke and rendered fat and hickory, the smell that had defined his life for 12 years. His head cook, Marcus, was plating a pulled pork sandwich. 2 other cooks worked the line, moving fast. "Marcus, table 7. Brisket plate." "Where is it?" Marcus looked up, confusion crossing his face. "Boss, I plated that 20 minutes ago. Put it on the pass myself." Ray felt something cold settle in his stomach. "It never made it to the table." "That's impossible. I watched Jenny take it." Ray found Jenny, their lead server, refilling sweet tea at the beverage station. "Table 7's brisket plate? I delivered that half an hour ago, Ray. I remember because the lady asked for extra pickles." Ray returned to table 7. The woman was already standing, purse over her shoulder. "Ma'am, please, let me comp your meal and get you a fresh. I don't want a free meal." "I want the meal I ordered." She walked out. Ray stood there as the lunch rush swirled around him. This wasn't the first complaint. It wasn't even the first this week. But everyone in his kitchen swore they were doing their jobs. That night, after close, Ray sat in his cramped office with the door locked and spreadsheets covering every surface. His sister Marie handled the books remotely. She had a head for numbers he'd never possessed, but she'd sent him something 3 days ago that he kept coming back to. The meat orders. Ray's Pit Barbecue went through roughly 400 pounds of brisket per week. The numbers had been consistent for years. But in the last 6 weeks, they'd been ordering 600 pounds. Sometimes 700. He picked up his phone and called the kitchen. Paul Hendricks, his manager of 3 years, answered on the second ring. "Hey, boss. What's up?" "Paul, I'm looking at the meat orders. We're going through almost double our normal supply." A pause. Then Paul's smooth voice came back. "Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. We've had some waste issues. New suppliers sent a couple bad batches, had to toss them. Plus Marcus has been training 2 new guys, and you know how that goes. Mistakes, overcooking, portion control problems." It sounded reasonable. Almost too reasonable. "Which suppliers sent bad meat?" Another pause, shorter this time. "I'd have to check the logs. I think it was that new place out of Memphis." "Why? You want me to file a complaint?" "No, it's fine. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Ray hung up and stared at the numbers again. Something was wrong. He could feel it the way he could feel when his smoker was running too hot, that instinct that came from years of paying attention. He pulled up the customer complaint log Marie had started keeping at his request. In the past 6 weeks, 47 complaints about missing food. 47 orders that staff swore they prepared and served, but customers swore they never received. The kitchen wasn't making mistakes. His servers weren't forgetting tables. The food was disappearing. Ray closed his laptop and looked at the framed photo on his desk, the day he'd opened Ray's Pit Barbecue. He'd been 26, foolish enough to drain his savings and confident enough to believe his brisket could carry him. For over a decade it had. He'd built something real here. Something that mattered. And someone was stealing from him. He could confront Paul tomorrow. Demand answers. Maybe call a staff meeting, threaten to install cameras, make a scene. That's what most owners would do. But Ray had learned a long time ago that the truth didn't come out when people knew you were watching. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out the small mirror he kept there, the one he used to check if he had sauce in his beard before meeting with suppliers. He studied his reflection. Everyone in this town knew Ray Torres. The beard, the weathered face, the way he wore his old Marine's cap everywhere. What if they didn't recognize him? The idea was crazy. Completely insane. But as he sat there in the quiet office, listening to the building settle around him, Ray realized it was the only way to know for sure what was happening in his own restaurant. He picked up his phone again. This time, he called Marie. "Ray? It's almost midnight. I need you to do something for me. And I need you to not ask questions." Marie was quiet for a moment. They'd been through enough together, their parents' restaurant going under, his deployment, her divorce, that she knew when he was serious. "What do you need?" "List me as laid off in the system. Then call that staffing agency we use for temporary dishwashers. Tell them you need someone to start Monday. Give them a fake name. David Morales. And make sure Paul gets the notification that he's hiring through the agency." "Ray, what are you doing?" "Finding out who's stealing from us." Ray stood in front of his bathroom mirror at 5 in the morning, scissors in hand, and hesitated. He'd had this beard for 8 years. It had become part of his identity. Customers joked about it, said his secret ingredient was beard seasoning. The scissors made the first cut. 20 minutes later, a stranger stared back at him. Clean-shaven, his face looked younger, unfamiliar. He'd forgotten he had a scar on his chin from a bar fight when he was 19. Without the beard, his whole face had different proportions. He pulled out the clippers and went shorter on his hair, trading his usual thick sweep for something closer to his military days. Then came the reading glasses he didn't need, cheap frames from the drugstore. A different style of clothes. Instead of his usual button-downs with the restaurant logo, he'd wear plain t-shirts and worn jeans. Clothes that said, "I need this job," instead of, "I own this place." Marie arrived at 7 with a folder. "You look weird," she said, handing him coffee. "That's the point." She sat at his kitchen table and spread out the papers. David Morales, age 38. Last job was washing dishes at a hotel downtown. They closed 3 months ago. References check out because I made them check out. Paul will get the staffing agency notification this morning. You start Monday. Ray studied the fake work history. Marie had been thorough. "What did you tell the agency?" "That we need a temporary dishwasher, 2 weeks minimum, possibly longer depending on performance. They're sending over David's information today. Paul will do a quick interview Monday morning, probably 5 minutes, knowing him. Dishwashers aren't exactly hard to find. He won't recognize me?" Marie tilted her head, studying him. "I've known you my whole life, and I barely recognize you. Just don't talk too much. Your voice might give you away." Ray nodded. He'd thought about that. He'd speak quietly, keep his head down, play the part of someone who needed the work and didn't want to lose it. "What if you're wrong?" Marie asked. "What if it's just waste, like Paul said? Bad suppliers, new staff making mistakes? Then I'll know that too. And if you're right? If someone on your staff is stealing?" Ray was quiet for a moment. He thought about Marcus, who'd been with him for 7 years. About Jenny, who'd worked doubles to save for her daughter's college. About the other cooks and servers who showed up every day, who'd become something like family. Then I need to know who. And I need proof. Real proof. Not just suspicions. Marie closed the folder. "You're risking a lot. If they find out you went undercover in your own restaurant, they're already stealing from me, Marie. I'm risking my business either way." She stood up, grabbed her purse. "I'll be watching the numbers. Any anomalies, I'll text you. But Ray?" She paused at the door. "Be careful. People do stupid things when money's involved." After she left, Ray sat alone in his kitchen, drinking coffee as the sun came up. He thought about his father, who'd run a small restaurant in El Paso before it went under. His dad had trusted everyone, believed the best in people, and lost everything because of it. Ray had joined the Marines partly to escape that failure, that lesson in what happened when you were too trusting. But he'd also learned something in the service. You didn't make accusations without evidence. You didn't blow up a situation based on gut feelings. You gathered intelligence first. His phone buzzed. A text from Paul. Got notification about new dishwasher starting Monday. Agency says he's solid. Can you approve the hire? Ray typed back, approved. Thanks for handling it. He stared at the message thread. 3 years Paul had worked for him. 3 years of showing up on time, handling schedules, dealing with difficult customers. Ray had trusted him with everything: keys, codes, ordering, hiring. He'd even let Paul negotiate directly with suppliers to save time. What if he was wrong about this? Ray walked to his home office and pulled up the security camera footage from the restaurant. He had 3 cameras, one covering the dining room, one on the register, one on the back door. He'd installed them years ago after a break-in, but he rarely checked them anymore. He scrolled through footage from the past week. Everything looked normal. Customers eating. Staff working. The usual rhythm of a busy restaurant. But the cameras didn't cover the kitchen. He'd never thought he needed them there. Monday morning, Ray would walk through the back door of his own restaurant as a stranger. He'd wash dishes, stay quiet, and watch. He'd find out what was happening to his food, his money, his business. And if someone on his staff was betraying him, he'd make sure he had every piece of evidence he needed before he acted. Ray Torres had built his restaurant from nothing. He'd survived recession, competition, and the constant challenge of keeping a small business alive. He'd survive this too. But first, he needed to know the truth. He picked up the cheap reading glasses and put them on, checking his reflection one more time in the darkened phone screen. David Morales looked back at him. Ray, David now, pushed through the back door of Ray's Pit BBQ at 10 a.m. Monday morning, carrying a worn backpack and keeping his eyes down. The familiar smell of hickory smoke hit him differently without the ownership attached to it. Now it was just the smell of a job. Paul was waiting in the cramped back office, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up. David Morales? Yes, sir. Ray kept his voice quiet, slightly rougher than usual. Great. You've washed dishes before? Hotel restaurant. 3 years. Paul finally glanced at him, a quick assessment that lasted maybe 2 seconds. Okay. Work shirts in the locker room, Danny will show you. You're on from 10 to 6, 5 days a week. We do family meal at 3, you eat fast and get back to it. Questions? No, sir. Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old. It's just Paul. He was already looking back at his phone. Danny! A young kid appeared, maybe 19, with flour on his apron. Yeah? Show David the station. Get him set up. That was it. The entire interview. Ray had hired dozens of people over the years, but he never realized how little attention Paul paid to dishwashers. They were invisible to him. Good. Danny led him to the dish station, 3 deep sinks and an industrial sprayer that Ray had installed himself 4 years ago. Pretty simple, Danny said. Scrape, spray, soap, rinse, sanitize. Stack everything by type. Pots go on the bottom rack. Don't let anything pile up or Chef Marcus loses his mind. Ray nodded, pulling on the too big work shirt with the restaurant's logo. His own logo. It felt surreal. You seem cool, Danny said. Last dishwasher quit after 2 days. Said the heat was too much. I can handle heat, Danny grinned. We'll see. The lunch rush started at 11. Ray fell into the rhythm easily, muscle memory from the summer he'd worked as a dishwasher during college. Plates came back loaded with bones and sauce. Pots arrived crusted with burnt ends. His hands moved automatically while his eyes watched everything else. Marcus ran the kitchen exactly as Ray had trained him, firm but fair, calling out orders, keeping the line moving. Jenny and the other servers hustled between tables and the kitchen. Everything looked normal. Too normal. At 1 p.m., Ray noticed Paul walk into the dry storage area with Marcus and one of the newer cooks, a guy named Tommy. Ray kept scrubbing a pot but angled himself to see through the narrow window in the storage door. They were loading something into large, plain foil containers. Not the restaurant's usual packaging with the logo and branding. These were generic, the kind you could buy at any restaurant supply store. Ray's hands slowed on the pot. Marcus emerged first, followed by Tommy carrying a stack of the containers. Paul came last, checking his phone. They moved toward the walk-in freezer. "Hey, David." Danny appeared beside him with another load of plates. "You good?" Ray nodded quickly, returning to his scrubbing. But his mind was racing. At 3 p.m., the kitchen staff gathered for family meal. Ray sat at the far end of the table, hunched over a plate of pulled pork and mac and cheese, listening. "Table 12 sent back the ribs," Jenny was saying. "Said they never got them, but I swear I delivered that order." Marcus shook his head. "I made those ribs myself. Perfect smoke ring, proper bark. I don't understand what's happening. Maybe we need a better system," Tommy said. "Like ticket tracking or something." Paul looked up from his phone. "We've been doing fine for years. It's just a rough patch. Happens sometimes." But Jenny looked frustrated. "It's happening too much, Paul. Customers are getting angry. Then we comp the meal and move on," Paul said, his voice taking on an edge. "That's how restaurants work." "Can we finish eating?" The table went quiet. Ray kept his head down, but he was watching Paul through his peripheral vision. The way Paul had shut down the conversation. The way he dismissed Jenny's legitimate concern. After family meal, Ray returned to his station. At 4:30, during the lull between lunch and dinner, he noticed Paul and Tommy making another trip to the storage area. Ray grabbed a bus tub like he was collecting dirty dishes from the line and moved closer. Through the storage door window, he watched Paul pull out his phone and take a photo of the foil containers stacked on the shelf. Then he typed something, a text probably. Tommy loaded 6 containers into a large black bag. "Taking these to the freezer," Tommy said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. But they didn't walk toward the walk-in freezer. They walked toward the back door. Ray's heart hammered. He moved back to his sink, but watched through the window. Tommy opened the back door. A white pickup truck was idling in the alley. Ray couldn't see the license plate from this angle, but he saw Tommy hand the bag to someone in the driver's seat. Money changed hands? Quick, practiced. Tommy came back inside, empty-handed, and returned to the line like nothing had happened. Ray's hands were shaking as he sprayed down another pot. He'd suspected theft. But seeing it, watching his own food being sold out the back door while customers complained about missing orders, made rage burn in his chest. He took a slow breath. Not yet. He needed more than one incident. He needed patterns, evidence, proof that couldn't be denied. David kept washing dishes. But now he knew exactly what he was looking for. Ray clocked out at 6 p.m., exhausted in a way he hadn't been in years. His hands were raw, his back ached, and his shirt was soaked with sweat and dishwater. But his mind was sharp, focused on one thing, the white pickup truck. He memorized what he could: newer model Ford extended cab, some kind of decal on the back window he couldn't quite make out. Tommy had loaded food into that truck twice during Ray's shift. The second time, Ray had managed to snap a photo through the window with his phone hidden behind a stack of plates. Now, as Tommy pushed through the back door ahead of him, Ray followed at a distance. Tommy walked 3 blocks to a bus stop, lit a cigarette, and waited. Ray hung back near a corner store, pretending to check his phone. The bus came. Tommy got on. Ray made a split-second decision and got on too, sitting near the front while Tommy slouched in the back with earbuds in. 20 minutes later, Tommy got off at a busy intersection near the riverfront. Ray followed, keeping half a block between them. The area was a mix of old warehouses converted to lofts and a growing food scene: food trucks, pop-up vendors, the kind of place young professionals flock to after work. Tommy walked straight to a cluster of food vendors set up in a converted parking lot. String lights hung overhead. Picnic tables were packed with people. The smell of grilling meat filled the air. And there, in the back corner, was the white pickup truck. It was parked behind a food stall with a hand-painted sign. Smokey's BBQ authentic pit smoked meats. Ray felt his stomach drop. The vendor was a guy in his 30s, heavy-set, wearing a grease-stained apron. He was plating food as fast as he could, a line of customers 10 deep in front of his stall. Ray watched Tommy walk up to the vendor, exchange a few words, then head toward the parking lot. Ray waited until Tommy was gone, then got in line. The couple in front of him was debating their order. "I'm telling you, this place has the best brisket in the city," the woman said. "Better than Ray's even." Her boyfriend laughed. "That's a bold claim. Ray's has been the standard for years." "Yeah, but this is different. More smoke, better bark. Just trust me." Ray's jaw tightened. He watched the vendor work. The man moved with efficiency, pulling meat from aluminum trays that looked exactly like the ones Tommy had loaded into the truck. The brisket had a dark, perfect bark. The smoke ring was pronounced textbook. Because it was Ray's brisket. His recipe, his smoking technique, his 12-hour process. When Ray reached the front of the line, he kept his voice neutral. "First time here. What's good?" The vendor grinned, wiping his hands on his apron. "Everything, man. But the brisket's my signature. Been perfecting my technique for years. I'll take a brisket plate." "Good choice." Ray watched him plate the meat. The cut was identical to how Marcus cut it, thick slices, fat cap rendered but not removed, the meat glistening. The vendor added 2 sides, coleslaw and beans that Ray didn't recognize, and handed over the plate. $12. Ray paid cash and took his food to an empty picnic table. He cut into the brisket and took a bite. It was his. Absolutely, unmistakably his. The salt and pepper rub with just a hint of garlic powder. The post-oak smoke. The tenderness that came from low and slow cooking, exactly 225 degrees for exactly 12 hours. He'd taught Marcus that technique. Had perfected it over years of trial and error, countless failed attempts, late nights standing by the smoker adjusting vents and temperatures. And now it was being sold out of a truck, credited to someone else. Ray pulled out his phone and took photos. The vendor set up the sign, the truck's license plate visible from this angle, JTM 4782. He took a video of the line of customers, captured the vendor pulling meat from the foil containers. A group of young women at the next table were raving about their meal. "We should come here every week," one said. "Why would anyone go to Ray's when you can get this for half the price?" Ray stared at his plate. Paul wasn't just stealing from him. He was creating competition. Using Ray's own food, his own recipes, to undermine his restaurant's reputation. Customers were comparing Smokey's BBQ to Ray's Pit BBQ and choosing the cheaper option, not knowing it was the exact same product. It was brilliant, in a sick way. And it was destroying everything Ray had built. He finished documenting everything, then walked back toward the vendor. The line had died down. The vendor was starting to clean up. "That was incredible," Ray said, playing the satisfied customer. "How long have you been doing this?" The vendor beamed. "About 2 months. Business has been crazy good." 2 months. Right when the meat orders had spiked. "You smoke everything yourself?" "Yeah, man. Got a custom smoker. Trade secrets, you know?" He winked. Ray nodded, smiled, walked away before his expression could betray him. He made it 2 blocks before he had to stop and lean against a building. His hands were shaking, not from exhaustion now, but from pure anger. Paul had done this. Set up this entire operation. Stolen Ray's food, his recipes, his reputation. And Tommy was helping him. Maybe others too. Ray pulled out his phone and texted Marie, "Found where the food is going. Need to talk. Tonight." Her response came immediately, "How bad?" Ray looked back toward the food vendor area, where people were still praising brisket that he had smoked, that his staff had prepared. "Worse than we thought." Ray sat in Marie's living room at 9 p.m., his phone connected to her laptop, uploading everything he'd captured. Photos of the vendor, the truck, the foil containers. Video of customers praising Smokey's brisket. The license plate number. Marie watched the footage, her expression growing darker. This is insane. How long has this been going on? Vendor said 2 months. That tracks with when the meat orders spiked. Ray rubbed his face, feeling the unfamiliar smoothness where his beard used to be. Paul's been systematic about it. Uses generic containers so there's no branding. Probably moves the food during shift changes when everyone's distracted. We should go to the police. With what? Photos of a food vendor? Paul will say he has no idea how that truck got our food. He'll blame Tommy, claim he was running his own side operation. We need proof that connects Paul directly. Marie pulled up a spreadsheet. I've been tracking the meat orders like you asked. Look at this pattern. Every Monday and Thursday, we get deliveries. By Tuesday and Friday, the inventory is always short by roughly 30 to 40 pounds. Like clockwork. Ray leaned forward. What days does Tommy work? Marie checked the schedule Ray had forwarded her. Monday through Friday. 10 to 6 inch. Same as me. Ray thought about the timing. Paul's smart. He's not taking everything. Just enough that it looks like normal waste or portion problems. Spread it across multiple staff members so no single person seems responsible. Except you've seen Tommy making the handoffs. Twice. I need more. If I'm going to fire Paul and press charges, I need documentation that no lawyer can argue away. Marie was quiet for a moment. You could just confront him. You own the business. And he'll deny everything. Then I'm the paranoid owner who went undercover because I didn't trust my staff. Even if I fire him, he could claim wrongful termination, sue me, drag this out for months. Meanwhile, the rest of the staff will wonder if I trust any of them. Ray shook his head. I need this airtight. The next morning, Tuesday, Ray arrived at the restaurant as David Morales with a plan. He'd stopped at an electronics store and bought a small camera that looked like a pen, the kind designed for recording meetings. He clipped it to his shirt pocket, angled toward the kitchen. At 1:30 p.m., during the post-lunch lull, Ray watched Paul and Marcus enter the storage area. Ray grabbed a mop and bucket, positioning himself near the storage door like he was cleaning. The pen camera was recording. Through the door's window, he watched Paul check his phone, then start pulling meat from the current stock. But this time, Ray could see more. Paul was weighing portions on a scale, dividing brisket and ribs into specific amounts. Marcus looked uncomfortable. I don't know, man, Marcus said, his voice muted through the door. This feels wrong. We've been over this, Paul replied. Ray's barely paying you what you're worth. You think he's struggling? Look at his truck, his house. Meanwhile, you're working 60-hour weeks for 40 hours of pay. Ray's grip tightened on the mop handle. Extra $500 a week, Marcus. Cash. All you have to do is pack the containers and keep your mouth shut. Marcus hesitated, then nodded slowly. Ray felt something break inside his chest. Marcus, who he'd trained, who he trusted with his kitchen. They loaded 6 containers. Paul handed Marcus a folded stack of bills. Thursday, same time? Ray mopped his way back to the dish station before they emerged, his mind reeling. Paul wasn't just stealing, he was recruiting staff, paying them off, building a network of accomplices. How many others were involved? At 4 p.m., Tommy made his usual trip to the back door. Ray had positioned himself at the dish window with a clear view of the alley. This time, he recorded everything: Tommy carrying the black bag, the white pickup pulling up, the exchange of goods and cash. But this time, Ray saw the driver clearly. It wasn't just some random vendor. The driver got out of the truck to help load, and Ray recognized him, Kevin Chin, who used to work as a line cook at Ray's 2 years ago. Ray had fired him for showing up drunk. The pieces clicked together. Paul had recruited someone who already knew Ray's recipes, someone with a grudge. Kevin had probably taught the vendor everything he knew about Ray's techniques. After his shift, Ray followed the truck again. But this time, he didn't stop at the food vendor area. He kept going, watching the truck pull into a storage facility 3 miles away. Ray parked down the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Kevin emerged with another man, the vendor from yesterday. They loaded more containers into the truck from a storage unit, then drove off. Ray walked to the storage facility's office. A bored teenager sat behind the counter, scrolling through social media. "Hey, I'm supposed to meet my buddy Kevin, Unit 147? But I forgot the code." The kid didn't even look up. "Can't give out codes, man." Ray pulled out a 20. "I just need to know if that's the right unit." "Kevin Chun?" The kid glanced at the money, then at his computer. "Unit 147 is registered to Paul Hendricks." Ray's blood went cold. Paul had rented the storage unit. This wasn't just opportunistic theft, it was premeditated, organized. Paul had infrastructure. "Thanks," Ray said, walking out before the kid could ask questions. He sat in his car and called Marie. "Paul rented a storage unit. He's got off-site inventory. This is bigger than I thought. Ray, this is enough. Go to the police." "Not yet. Tomorrow I'm recording Paul directly. I need him on camera, making the handoff, exchanging money. Then we have everything. And if something goes wrong?" Ray looked at the storage facility, thinking about his restaurant, his reputation, everything he built. Nothing's going to go wrong. Ray didn't sleep Tuesday night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. He had video of Tommy making handoffs. He had audio of Paul recruiting Marcus. He had photos of the vendor, the storage unit in Paul's name, the license plate. But he didn't have Paul on camera making the actual exchange of money or food. Any decent lawyer could claim Paul was being framed, that Tommy and Kevin were running their own operation. Ray needed Paul caught in the act, with witnesses who couldn't be dismissed. At 6 a.m., he called Marie. "Remember Joel Pacheco? Used to work health inspections for the county? Your friend from the Marines? He owes me a favor. Big one. I need him to show up at the restaurant today at 2 p.m., pretending to do a surprise inspection." Marie was quiet for a moment. "Ray, that's... I know. But it'll force Paul to explain where the inventory is. In front of an official. On record. What if Joel says no?" "He won't." Joel didn't. When Ray called, explaining only that he needed help catching someone stealing from his restaurant, Joel agreed immediately. "You saved my life in Kandahar, brother. I'll be there." Wednesday morning, Ray arrived at the restaurant with the pen camera again, but this time he also wore a small audio recorder tucked into his waistband. Everything Paul said today would be documented. The morning shift passed slowly. Ray washed dishes, stayed invisible, and watched. At 1:15, Paul got a phone call. He stepped into the office, but Ray was close enough to hear through the thin wall. "Yeah, I've got your order. 6 containers, usual spot. Cash only, same price. 2 o'clock? No, that's fine. I'll have Tommy meet you." Ray's heart hammered. 2 o'clock, exactly when Joel was scheduled to arrive. At 1:45, Paul and Tommy headed to the storage area. Ray watched them load 8 containers this time, a bigger order than usual. They moved everything to the walk-in freezer, stacking the containers in the back corner behind legitimate inventory. At 1:55, Tommy grabbed the black bag and headed for the back door. At 2 p.m., Joel Pacheco walked through the front entrance wearing his old health inspector's jacket and carrying an official-looking clipboard. Ray had texted him the timing perfectly. "Health and safety inspection," Joel announced loudly. "I need to see the manager." The dining room went quiet. Jenny hurried to the kitchen. "Paul! Health inspector's here!" Ray watched through the dish station window as Paul's expression flickered, just for a second, into panic. Then the smooth mask returned. "Of course. Right this way." Paul led Joel into the kitchen, and Ray edged closer, pretending to organize clean plates. Joel played his part perfectly. "I need to verify your inventory matches your ordering logs. There's been reports of irregularities in supply chain documentation in this district." "Irregularities?" Paul's voice was calm, but Ray could hear the tension underneath. "Supply waste, missing product, unaccounted variance." Routine check. Can you show me your walk-in? They moved to the freezer. Ray followed with a bus tub, positioning himself just outside where he could hear everything. His pen camera was recording. Joel checked his clipboard. According to your delivery logs, you received 600 pounds of brisket this week. Can you account for current inventory? Ray heard the sound of Paul moving containers, the rustle of plastic wrap. We've been going through supply faster than usual, Paul said. Busy week. I need exact numbers. Your logs show you should have approximately 200 pounds remaining. Can you show me that? A pause. Ray could picture Paul calculating, trying to figure out how much was in the storage unit, how much had already been sold, how much he could claim was legitimate waste. Some of it's already prepped for service, Paul said. We have containers ready for tonight's dinner rush. Show me. They emerged from the freezer. Paul went to the prep station where Tommy had loaded the foil containers earlier. But the containers were gone. Tommy had already taken them to the back door. Paul's expression cracked. They were just here. Where's your prep cook? Joel asked. Tommy. Paul turned, scanning the kitchen. Tommy was nowhere to be seen. He was outside making the handoff. Ray saw his moment. He stepped forward, keeping his voice quiet and deferential. Excuse me, sir? I think I saw someone taking containers out the back door about 5 minutes ago. Paul's head snapped toward him. For the first time, Paul really looked at David Morales, the dishwasher who'd been invisible for 3 days. What did you see? Joel asked Ray. A guy loading a black bag into a white truck. Looked like food containers. That's impossible, Paul said quickly. We don't have any deliveries scheduled. David's mistaken. Joel raised an eyebrow. Let's check the back alley. They moved toward the back door, Paul, Joel, Ray, and now Marcus, who'd heard the commotion. Jenny and 2 other staff members followed. Joel pushed open the door. The white pickup truck was still there. Tommy was frozen halfway between the door and the truck, the black bag in his hands. Kevin stood by the truck bed, cash visible in his grip. Everyone stopped. That's interesting, Joel said slowly. Because this looks exactly like unauthorized product removal. Tommy's face went white. Paul, Shut up, Paul hissed. But Joel was already walking toward the truck. Sir, I'm going to need to see what's in that bag. Ray pulled out his phone and started recording openly now. Kevin dropped the money and ran. Tommy stood there, helpless. Joel opened the bag. Inside were 8 foil containers packed with brisket and ribs. Paul, Joel said quietly. You want to explain this? Paul's jaw worked. Ray could see him thinking, calculating, looking for an exit that didn't exist. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? And that's when Ray stepped forward and pulled off his glasses. Ray removed the glasses slowly, then pulled off the cap he'd been wearing low over his eyes. The afternoon sun hit his face fully for the first time in 3 days. Jenny gasped. Oh my God! Marcus took a step back, his expression crumbling into shock. Boss? Paul's face strained of all color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Hi, Paul, Ray said quietly. His voice was his own now, no more rough disguise, no more deference. Been an interesting few days. The silence in the alley was absolute. Tommy still held the black bag, frozen like a statue. The other staff members who'd followed outside stared at Ray like he'd materialized from thin air. You, Paul's voice cracked. You were the dishwasher? David Morales. Nice to meet you. Ray pulled the pen camera from his pocket and held it up. I've got 3 days of footage, Paul. Every handoff. Every container. Every dollar exchanged. I've got audio of you recruiting Marcus. I've got photos of the storage unit you rented. License plates. Bank records my sister pulled showing irregular cash deposits. Paul's shock was transforming into something else, desperation, anger. You spied on your own staff? I investigated theft in my own business. This is entrapment. You can't. Entrapment is when law enforcement induces someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. Joel stepped forward, his voice official now. I'm here as a private citizen helping a friend document an ongoing crime. Everything we've witnessed is admissible. Paul turned to the staff members. He went behind our backs. He doesn't trust any of us. Do you see what kind of person he really is? But Marcus was staring at the ground, shame written across his face. Jenny looked between Ray and Paul, her expression hardening. How long? Ray asked Paul. How long have you been stealing from me? Stealing? Paul's voice rose. You want to talk about stealing? You steal from us every day, Ray. Minimum wage for backbreaking work while you drive a $50,000 truck. I drive a 12-year-old F-150 that I bought used, and everyone here makes above minimum wage. Barely. You know what Marcus makes? $15 an hour. You know what line cooks make downtown? $22. But you keep him here, overworked and underpaid, because you know he's loyal. Marcus flinched. Ray kept his voice level. Marcus makes $18.50 an hour, plus overtime, plus a share of the tip pool I set up last year specifically so kitchen staff would benefit from good service. His actual take-home is around $22 an hour. But you knew that, Paul, because you process payroll. Paul's jaw tightened. You want to know what I make? Ray continued. Last year, after expenses, salary, overhead, and paying everyone on staff, I took home $43,000. I own the building, which means every dollar I make goes into mortgage, maintenance, and keeping this place running. So please tell me again how I'm stealing from you. You're still the owner. Paul shot back. You get the equity. The reputation? We're just workers. You were the manager. I trusted you with everything. Keys, codes, supplier relationships, hiring. I gave you responsibility because I thought you cared about this place. I did care. But caring doesn't pay my rent, Ray. It doesn't help when my daughter needs braces or my car breaks down. So you decided to steal from me? Set up a competing business using my food, my recipes? Recruit my staff to help you? I gave them opportunities. Tommy's making an extra $600 a week. Marcus got $500. Everyone involved got paid better than you were paying them. With my money! Ray's voice rose for the first time. You were selling my product and pocketing the profits while destroying my restaurant's reputation. Tommy finally spoke, his voice small. I didn't know it was going to hurt the restaurant. Paul said there was extra food that would just go to waste. There was no extra food. Ray turned to him. Every pound you sold out this door was food that paying customers never received. That's why we had 47 complaints in 6 weeks. That's why people stopped coming back. You weren't selling waste, you were stealing orders. Tommy's face crumpled. The bag slipped from his hands, hitting the pavement with a dull thud. Marcus stepped forward, his voice shaking. Ray, I swear I thought. Paul said you were making so much money that you wouldn't even notice. He said this was just evening things out. Did you notice when I cut my own salary last year so I could give everyone Christmas bonuses? Did you notice when I paid for Danny's mother's hospital bills out of pocket? Did you notice 12 years of me showing up every single day, working alongside all of you, because this restaurant is everything I have? Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ray took a breath, steadying himself. He looked at Paul. You had a choice. You could have come to me, told me you needed more money. We could have talked about raises, profit sharing, making you a partner. Instead, you chose this. You would never have made me a partner. You're right. Not now. Not after this. Ray pulled out his phone and opened his email. I'm forwarding everything to my lawyer and the police. Video evidence, audio recordings, financial documents showing the storage unit rental, bank records. You're fired, Paul. Effective immediately. Turn in your keys. You can't fire me without. I can and I am. Joel is a witness. So is everyone here. You're done. Paul stood there, breathing hard, his face red. Then he yanked the keys from his pocket and threw them at Ray's feet. "This place will fall apart without me. We'll manage." Paul looked at the gathered staff one last time, then at Tommy. "Come on." Tommy shook his head slowly. "No, man. I'm not. I'm done." Paul's expression twisted into something ugly. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner without looking back. The alley was silent except for the distant sound of traffic. Ray bent down and picked up his keys. 3 days later, Ray called a full staff meeting before opening. Everyone showed up, even the ones who weren't scheduled. Word had spread fast. The owner had gone undercover. The manager had been stealing. People wanted answers. Ray stood at the front of the dining room, clean-shaven still, though he'd stopped wearing the glasses. 18 faces looked back at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear to shame. "First, I owe all of you an apology," Ray began. "I went undercover because I didn't know who I could trust. That was my failure as an owner, not creating an environment where people felt safe enough to come forward when something was wrong." Jenny shifted in her seat. "We didn't know, Ray. I swear. I had no idea Paul was." "I know. Most of you didn't." Ray looked at Marcus, who sat in the back, eyes downcast. "But some of you did. And I need to address that." The room tensed. "Marcus, Tommy, stand up please." They did, reluctantly. Tommy looked like he might be sick. "You both participated in stealing from this restaurant. You both took money from Paul knowing it came from selling food that belonged here. Tommy, you made the handoffs. Marcus, you packed the containers and kept quiet." Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "I know. I'm so sorry. I should fire you both. I have every legal right to, and most owners would." Tommy closed his eyes. "But I'm not going to." Ray let that sit for a moment. "Here's why Paul manipulated you. He found people who were struggling, who felt undervalued, and he exploited that. He's the one who built this system, who recruited you, who convinced you it was harmless." "It wasn't harmless," Marcus said, tears in his eyes. "I see that now. We hurt people. We hurt you. Yes, you did. But you're also both good at your jobs, and I believe you can earn back trust. So here's what's going to happen. You're both staying on, but you're on probation for 6 months. You'll work with Joel. He's agreed to help me set up proper inventory controls, and you'll help train the new systems. You'll be transparent, accountable, and if you make one mistake, one breach of trust, you're gone. Understood?" They both nodded, relief and shame mixing on their faces. "Sit down," Ray waited until they did. "Now, for everyone else. I've spent the last 3 days thinking about what Paul said. He was wrong in what he did, completely, inexcusably wrong. But he wasn't wrong about everything. Some of you are underpaid for what you do. Some of you work harder than I've acknowledged." He pulled out a printed sheet. "Starting next week, we're implementing new changes. First, wage increases. Kitchen staff is getting bumped up by $2 an hour across the board. Servers are getting a better tip pool split. Second, I'm instituting quarterly profit sharing. When we have a good quarter, everyone who helped make that happen gets a bonus. Real money, not just a thank you." Murmurs spread through the room, surprised, cautiously hopeful. Third, transparency. Every month, I'm sharing the restaurant's financial snapshot with everyone. You'll see what comes in, what goes out, what the margins are. No more wondering if I'm hiding profits while you struggle. You'll know exactly where the business stands." Jenny raised her hand. "What about management? Who's replacing Paul?" Ray looked at Marcus. "I'm promoting Marcus to kitchen manager. He's earned a second chance, and he knows this kitchen better than anyone. But Marcus, you're going to have help. I'm also hiring an assistant manager to handle scheduling and front-of-house operations. Someone with no connection to Paul or this situation. Fresh start." Marcus stood up suddenly. "Ray, I don't deserve. You made a mistake. A serious one. But I've watched you for 7 years, Marcus. You care about food, about quality, about this place. Paul took advantage of that. Don't let his manipulation define you. Show me I'm right to give you this chance. Marcus sat down slowly, wiping his eyes. Last thing, Ray said. My door is open. Literally. If you're struggling financially, if you have concerns about operations, if you see something wrong, come to me. Don't let problems fester. Don't let someone like Paul convince you that stealing is the only option. We're a team. We succeed together or we fail together. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Danny, the young cook, spoke up. Are we going to be okay? The restaurant, I mean. After everything? Ray smiled, though it was tired. Honestly? I don't know. We lost customers. Our reputation took a hit. It's going to take time to rebuild. But we're going to try. And I need all of you to help make it happen. Jenny stood. We're in. Right, everyone? A chorus of agreement filled the room. 6 weeks later, Ray stood at the smoker at 5:30 am, watching sunrise paint the sky orange and pink. Steam rose from the smoker vents, carrying the smell of hickory and slow-cooking brisket. His beard was growing back, patchy and gray in new places. He looked older than he had 2 months ago. But the restaurant was his again. Customer complaints had dropped to near zero. The new inventory system Joel helped implement meant every piece of meat was tracked from delivery to plate. Marcus ran the kitchen with a fierce dedication, like a man determined to prove himself every single day. The new assistant manager, a woman named Carol with 20 years of restaurant experience, had brought order and efficiency to the front of house. Revenue was climbing back. Slowly, but steadily. Ray's phone buzzed. A text from Marie. October numbers are in. Up 12% from last month. We're going to make it. Ray smiled and pocketed the phone. He opened the smoker, checking the brisket's internal temperature. Perfect. Another 6 hours and it would be ready. The back door opened. Marcus arrived for his shift, early as always now. Morning, boss. Morning, Marcus. Coffee's fresh. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching smoke curl into the dawn sky. The restaurant hummed with the promise of another day, built not on deception or shortcuts, but on honest work and hard-earned trust. Ray's Pit BBQ would survive. It already had.